Welcome back to another very special interview Wednesday. I am the officiant Kent, and joining me here live after PBENT2 is Kiko Harris of That Klassic Tag Team. Kiko, thank you so much for joining me.
Kent, thank you for having me, man.
We've been meaning to do this for a while.
Yeah, we've been talking about this for a long time. It's been a while. But
there are so many things I could ask you about your amazing promos, being the best dropkick in Florida, perhaps the entire country. There's just so much to talk about. Let's just talk about you, though. Okay. How did you first discover wrestling? When did you first find it in your life? And I'm not talking about getting into wrestling. I'm talking about first saw wrestling.
Well, that's an interesting question because I remember vaguely. I think I saw it in like early 1995-ish, maybe seeing like a Shawn Michaels WWF type of thing. But the first time that really sticks with me is I think my family just moved to Daytona Beach. My dad just got a job, a promotion work at UPS in Daytona. So we were staying at a hotel, maybe an apartment. I can't really remember. Flipping through channels, turn on TNT, and WCW Nitro was on. This got to be 1997.
Mm-hmm.
I vaguely, and this is not 100% sure memory, but I'm pretty sure I remember seeing some type of Randy Savage NWO angle. Okay. And ever since then, it was like one of those things was like, this is pretty cool. This is pretty sweet. And then, in elementary school, that 7 years old at the time, and I was at, a new school and everything because I moved from Georgia and I lived in Ormond Beach, Florida. And that's just something that connected with everybody else. Everybody loved wrestling. That was just that time where that's all we'd talk about.
That's really lucky because nobody loved wrestling in my high school.
Really?
I was endlessly mocked for me and my best friend loving wrestling.
Well, that was elementary school, so, in high school.
It may have been cooler then,
yeah. But that's what I remember. I remember watching Nitro and seeing, I'm pretty sure it was Randy Savage in the NWO angle, like they jumped the guy or something like that. And then you're 7 years old and you're like, what is that? What? That's the one that sticks out to me. Like I said, I kind of remember seeing a WWF Shawn Michaels kind of thing, but I'm not 100% sure, but I think I did. I don't know.
And when did you decide this is what I want to do? This is going to be my future. I'm going to give my body and mind to this. Gosh. When did that moment happen for you?
Well, I tell people two stories.
Okay. Tell them both.
There's one that's kind of goofy, and there's one that's more serious. So, like I said, we lived in Daytona Beach, or Ormond Beach, right outside of Daytona when I was a kid. And my dad, he got promoted to move to Ormond Beach. We lived in South Georgia. He got a promotion. We moved to Daytona. I was there from 1997 to 2000. He got another promotion, and he flew to Atlanta. So now he's working in Atlanta, but he had to fly back and forth from Daytona International. He was flying back from Atlanta to Daytona because we're not all the way fully moved into Atlanta yet. And he calls me, and I don't know how he called because, I think he had a Nokia cell phone, but I don't know how it worked on the plane back then. But he told my mom or me or somebody that there was a wrestler on the plane. This is the year 2000. So he told my mom or me, there's a wrestler on this plane. I'm like, Dad, which wrestler is it? And he's like, it's K Diggity, K Dog. K Diggity Dog. I'm like, Konnan? Konnan's on the plane? And he's like, yeah, him. I'm like, what? So we drove to pick him up, and Daytona International is not that big, and this is before 9/11, so you could just go right in and out of the airport.
I miss those days. I really do.
So we go in, right, and I'm like waiting. I see my dad, and I say, oh, hey, Dad, where's the wrestler? Because they never took me to wrestling shows. My dad went from stages of loving it to not caring about it, but he never took me to a live event. So I'm like, where's the wrestler? Because I've never seen one in person before. So my dad comes out, and Konnan comes out, maybe 5 people behind him, and he's got his whole posse with him. My dad, now this is before I realized, what height actually meant, I knew people were tall, some people were short. My dad was towering over Konnan.
Yeah.
My dad's about as tall as I am now. He's about 6'2". And Konnan was jacked 100%, and he dressed just like you would think K Diggity Dog would dress. He had on his FUBU. He had on, I think, he had one of the FUBU hats, the fuzzy one. He looked like K Dog would dress, but my dad was so much taller than him. And I was like, that's K-Dog. He was jacked, but my dad was so much taller than him. I'm like, I can do that.
There's this weird illusion in wrestling that I've noticed where the guys I think would be normal size are huge, and the guys I'd expect are huge are tiny.
Yeah, it's kind of
I don't know why that happens, but it just does.
It's kind of like when you watch the NBA and you see the point guards, and they're like, they're not that tall, and you see them in person, and you're like, okay, he's 6'3", but wow.
Yeah, I thought Billy Gunn, average 6 foot. No, he's almost
ginormous.
6'5". He's huge.
It's crazy.
So when did you start training wrestling, or when did you decide I'm going to start training wrestling, and then you pick your school?
So
how did that happen?
I was always a fan of wrestling. I always went I would go back and forth between watching and not watching it. Like my dad, Sometimes he liked it, and sometimes he's like, "This is the stupidest thing I've ever seen." Sometimes he was really a big fan of Goldberg, and so was I as a kid. But they never took me to a live show, so it wasn't like my family was like,
Right.
"Watch wrestling," and I was always a WCW fan. They wouldn't let me watch WWF because of the Attitude Era, because of cursing and the women and how they dressed. So like every time we'd flip it, and they'd be like, "Mom, give it a chance." It'd be like a good match. I'm like, "See, it's wrestling. It's just a match." And then the next thing, like Sable comes out. And
Right, exactly.
Of course, I don't want to. I just want to watch the wrestling. So I wasn't allowed to watch WWF. So I'd like come back and forth to it. I watched WCW up until like 1999, from like 97, 99, like off and on, as much as you could as a kid, as much as your parents would allow you to hold the remote. And then I stopped after 1999, and then WCW went out of business. And I knew like The Rock, I knew Stone Cold, and I knew a few WWF guys from like trading card games. Like I knew who X-Pac was, I knew who The Undertaker and Kane were, but that's about as far as I knew who DX was. But once the WCW guys started coming over to WWE is when I started watching again. So I used to always go watch off and on. I'd watch for a couple years, take a break, come back, take a break. And I played athletics all my life. My dad played college football, nothing big time, but he played college football, so I always played football. Played football, basketball, baseball, but my main focus was football. So I got recruited to play college football. Nothing huge. It wasn't like a Division I school. It wasn't like the University of Texas or Alabama or anything like that. It was like Division II and Division III schools, and they're all up north. There was a school in Maryland, a school in Virginia, and a school in Minnesota. And I was strongly considering a school in Minnesota, but they were trying to basically work me into taking half a scholarship instead of a full scholarship.
Right.
So I called the guy out on it. He never called me again. So I was like, okay. In Georgia, there's a Hope Scholarship, which is basically if you keep your grade point average above a 3.0 or 3.5, I can't remember, then the state of Georgia will help pay for your college. So I just stayed home and went to Georgia Southern. And as I did, I didn't have football anymore. I thought about walking on, but didn't really happen the way I wanted. I didn't think I fit the scheme with what they were trying to do. So I was like, okay, well, put on 15 pounds. You put on the freshman 15, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I got to figure out something to do, like, because I don't have sports anymore. So, like, I never really trained myself. I always had a coach telling me how to train. So I started just looking up how to work out, like how to get back in shape, because I needed to, because I was out of shape. And then, I don't know how, but I started looking up, like, old wrestling videos and just getting pumped up and, like, watching it before I worked out, like a pre-workout, like a weird pre-workout.
Like a psycho.
Like I'd watch like a Goldberg entrance and be like, yeah, let's go work out, because I used to just work out in my room. Like I did P90X in my room, and then I started doing gym later. But like I just like listen to wrestling themes and like work out. And I don't know when, but something clicked. Like I can do this. Like I can do this. I think I'm pretty entertaining. I think I'm fairly athletic. I feel I was match most of the qualities of being a good professional wrestler. So I'll do it. And I remember being in the Georgia Southern Library one night, not doing the work I was supposed to do, and Googling wrestling schools and like how to wrestle. I even think I saw WikiHow, like step by step.
How to get into wrestling.
Yeah,
I've seen those articles before.
And I'm like, okay, but I was looking up schools. There's some schools in Atlanta, and there are some schools in Orlando. And the two that stood up to me, because I've lived in Georgia most of my life. I did that one stint in Daytona, and it was fun. I really liked that Ormond Beach, Daytona Beach. And I mean, I was a kid, so as a kid, you're more fond of certain things. So like I lived in Georgia most of my life. I want to move back to Florida. That seems like that'd be something fun to do. So I was between the Dory Funk School, which is actually here in Ocala, and Team 3D in Orlando. And we would always vacation in Orlando. And one time I was like, why don't I go and check it out?
Take a look.
So I did. And it was weird because I didn't see, like, I couldn't find a school. The Team 3D school is attached to a gym. So I went to the gym. I'm like, excuse me, sir, like, I'm looking for a wrestling school, because I could hear them working in the back.
Yeah.
I heard them bumping, and then you get excited, like, what? Okay. So he's like, oh, so in the back you just go around. So I didn't notice, so I go around to the back, and I walk in like a moron. I just walk in, hey, is there a brochure I could have, So I walk in, and Devon's in the ring, and he's training some people, like maybe 3 or 4 people in the ring with Devon. And then one of our trainers named Dan Cars, he's in the room behind him. And I go to Devon, I'm like looking around, and Devon goes, can I help you? And I'm like, I was looking for information on the school. And he's like, go talk to Dan. And then we talked for a little bit, and he kind of told me all the ins and outs about what they do at the school, and he just told me to come back and watch a workout. And I think maybe I did it the next day, or I went a couple times before I actually started for real, because my parents wanted me to graduate college first.
Yeah.
So I went down, and I checked it out a couple times, and they knew who I was. Like, I wasn't there every day, but I was like there like once a year. And I went there maybe 2 years just to say hello, and I think they remembered me. But my parents wanted me to graduate college. So I said, okay. Once I graduated, and it was really hard to say okay, because you saw it. And
It's right there. It's so attainable right now. Yeah.
Which But in the end, it was the best thing to do, just so you can have something to fall back on.
I say that to everybody. I'm like, you got to have a
Yeah.
backup plan because this is so unpredictable. Your first year, you could get injured and be done, or your 15th year, you could get injured and be done, or you could just make it to retirement. Like any day in between that,
Absolutely.
anything can happen.
I agree 100%. So it was one of those things where I'm like, but I was close to graduating anyway. I was like a year away, but I was like, ugh, but you're that. So I graduated, and I said, okay, Mom and Dad, after I graduate, I'm going to go down to Team 3D to be a professional wrestler. They go, with what money? And I said, that's a good point.
That's a good question.
So I got my degree in education. I wanted to be a football coach. That was one thing I wanted to do. So before I moved down, I got a job as a strength and conditioning coach and offensive line coach at a high school. And I also taught health, and I taught PE. But I was mainly just using the weight room. And they brought me on because I was studying to get my CS, which is Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist.
Okay.
So they gave me the job. And they're like, all right, you got the job. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to look how much the test is for the CSS. It was $500. I'm like, I already got the job. I don't think it would have been smarter to do it, but I didn't have $500 at the time.
Whatever.
So I was like, all right, well, after this year, because I wanted to coach too. I really like football. I'm a big football guy. It's always something that's been part of my life too. But, and it was a fun year too. That was the first team that was Metter High School in Metter, Georgia. The first time in 7 years that team got to the playoffs. So, it was fun to watch those kids grow and have input in it. And that was something I like to do, too. But I was just turned 23 at the time. And I'm like, I love working with kids. I love working with kids. But I feel like there's something like I need to do something for me. And that was always in the back of my head anyway, because the whole plan anyway was to save up money and go.
Well, and that's something you can always go back to. It's
Right.
like in wrestling, that clock seems to be getting longer and longer as the generations go on, but like there is still a clock of like if you're not going to do it by a certain time,
Right.
you got to just give up on doing it.
Pretty much. So I was like, all right, I got to go. So we saw some things differently, me and the coach, which made it easier. It wasn't anything like bad.
No.
He was the head coach. I had to do what he said, but some things that he told me didn't come to fruition, which made it easier to go, okay, like I'm gone.
You just gave me the answer I needed.
Right. And so coming back now, this was really risky. I had money saved up, and I quit my job, but I didn't know where I was going to work or where I was going to live in Orlando, because I was been in contact with them, and they say, you just hook up with some other people and figure it out, go from there.
It's so scary.
Looking back on it
That
now,
is so scary.
And the thing was, I was naive to the point where it didn't bother me that much, because I'm like, okay, this will work, because I had a pretty good
Of course
amount.
it'll work. How
Right.
could it not?
I had a bunch of money saved up, so I was good. But I really, looking back at now, the stress level that I would experience now compared to when I experienced it back then, now I think I would have been a lot more stressed about it, because I didn't have a job,
Yeah.
and I didn't have a place to live. But it all worked out. I lived in a condominium right next to the school, and I worked part-time at Disney World. That was the first place I applied.
There you go.
Yeah, so I make sure that when I worked, it was days that were not training.
Right.
So that worked out. So
Yeah.
that's how I ended up there, and I did that for a year. I trained trained every day for a year and worked part-time at Disney.
I think you gave the perfect description of a wrestling school. I think people have this image in their mind that it's going to be this big, gorgeous gym with this nice neon sign that says
Yeah.
wrestling school, when in actuality you should check storage units and dingy warehouses
Yeah.
and back rooms of gyms.
Right.
So I think it is very cool that you kind of had to be how do I get information about this place? Because that's how a lot of us started. Is there's no clear-cut path or clear-cut
Right, 'cause
answer
it's
of
not
you go here and you go to school.
Right.
It's you better know somebody or find somebody who knows somebody.
Right, because it's not like the NFL where you can just go to college and get
No.
drafted.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, how do you do it? And I actually went first ever wrestling show I went to. I was 22.
Yeah.
I went with my brother and I went to a TNA taping, and I actually saw Devon. I knew about the school because I had Googled it and WikiHow'd it. And I saw Devon. I was like, hey man, I just want to talk to you. And this was years before I actually walked in, but I talked to him about it. He's like, yeah, just come out of school. He looked obviously annoyed because he just got done wrestling. I know you don't want to be bothered, but I had to ask him anyway. But yeah, 3D is what's good about 3D is they're super structured. So it helped me to know when I could do my part-time job. Mm-hmm. So I was there every day that I wasn't working. So I only worked 3 days a week. And the thing was that money ran out pretty fast.
Yeah.
So that was just kind of, how that happened. Then you have to get another job, so. But that's pretty much how I got here. And it was all just from, feeling weird about not playing sports anymore. And I'd always dreamed about being a pro wrestler anyway. It's not like I was just like, that's something I can do. It's
Yeah.
something it's always in the back of your mind, but like we talked about, you don't know how to do it.
No, it's not like
Yeah.
I go to high school, I become, All-American in high school, then I go to college,
Right.
become All-American in college, then get drafted to the NFL. Like, it's not like that. It's like, it's very still carny-based, is
Right.
what I like to say. There's still a very carny mindset around wrestling.
Right.
Of like, it's the secret, we've got to hide it, and like not let the world know, or
Right.
it's just going to ruin it.
Yeah.
So,
And I remember looking up some stuff in high school too, and I was like, and I lived in North Georgia at the time, so they had like, I think Deep South Wrestling was the WWE territory that became FCW and then became NXT. So that was kind of like their developmental time. But then again, that's finding out something. But I couldn't just walk up to them and be like, "Hey, I'd like to train," because you got to, go through.
yeah, you don't just to get to sign up to be on their roster. Like, you
Right.
have to work your way there.
Right. And there's also, I think at the time they changed the name. They hadn't changed the name. It was NWA Wildside, where AJ Styles and those guys were. And this was 2005 or 6. So this was like. AJ's been gone from there.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But
He was tearing up TNA.
Right, that was his TNA time. So I remember looking through that too, and also like wondering, but it never like hit as this is something I should really do until college, because I was like, I want to, I would like to do something besides just working 9 to 5.
Oh God, couldn't even imagine. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. So, what was your first gimmick? What was your first character, and what do you remember about your first match? I've asked some of the other wrestlers that, and I've heard horror stories from, we did it at a birthday party, and I got caught changing in the bathroom, or one guy said he pooped his pants
My
during his
goodness.
first match. What was your first match experience, and what was your gimmick?
Well, the first gimmick I ever had, like I said, I've always been sports based, and I've always liked like realistic gimmicks.
Yeah.
Obviously, you like outlandish stuff, but I was more like the stuff that could be more based in realism. Not like I have a problem with Sting or The Undertaker; those gimmicks work too. But I just really like the more grounded in reality stuff.
Well, I can't wait till we get to your current gimmick, because I think the reality is a little
it's a
skewed
little-
on
yeah,
that.
for
But
sure.
anyway, please continue.
So my deal was like being, it was like a combination of like MVP from the sports based, and then the $1 Million Man from it was like a guy that was a rich sports figure, like
Okay.
a Deion Sanders type of deal. I actually did singles before I started tagging with Cody. I did that for a year, and then we kind of merged everything together, and it worked pretty good. It was a fun gimmick, and it's actually something that you always put back in your back pocket. Make
Yeah,
some
you can always
tweaks.
fall back on it.
Right,
If
make some tweaks
Something
to it.
happens, God forbid, to TKTT. You
Yeah.
got that to fall back on.
Right. So I did that, and that was like the whole thing around that. Like our thing now for TKTT is take a trip on the wild side. Before that it was just Kiko Harris. I had easy money. So I had like a really schmuckish elbow drop. So I'd belly to back somebody. I'd draw the dollar signs in the air and make two, cha-chings, and then I'd hit an elbow drop. And that was like super easy heat 101. But I mainly just did that in the school at 3D up until my first match. And, I did it after my first match too. But the point I'm getting to is the first match I had, it's not a horror story. It's a good story. The part that gets bad is what happens after it. So the first match was Mucha Lucha in Atlanta. I drove with the Bandejos at the time, or Team Lucha, with John Cruz and Jay Rios, and we did a 6-man tag with a wrestler that's in the WWE now, Lince Dorado.
Lince Dorado.
And also Mr. 450. So I drove up there with them, and Lince figured out it was my first match, and he was like, he's good though. So we did a 2-on-3. I was one of the heels with Cruz. I don't think he was doing the Serpentico thing at the time. It was Cruz and Mr. 450 versus Lince and Jay. And talk about spoiling me.
Yeah, that's a pretty action-packed, star-filled first match to have.
Talk
It's
about
usually me and another student who didn't know what we were doing, but you're like thrown into the fire of. Anyway,
Talking about spoiling, I was spoiled. That crowd was amazing. The production was amazing. The pay was amazing. After that show, I thought everything should be like that.
oh, that's adorable.
And it wasn't. It wasn't, folks. It wasn't like that. So it spoiled me a little bit, because I'm like, what? Like, all these shows should be like this, but they're not.
Yeah, how many flea markets and parking lots did it take for you to actually hit reality?
It was weird, man. It was one of those things where it's like, okay, look, obviously now you look back on it, you're like, okay, this is how it actually is. But at the time, once that happens, you're feeling like this is happening. when it's more, and everything in life is like this,
Of
but
course.
especially wrestling. But my first match was, I don't know if anybody can beat what I was introduced to, and that was all credit to those guys too, because they took care of me and they trusted me, which is a blessing. They trusted me, and they made sure that I got paid very, very handily. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but it was really good. It was a really good payday.
I'll occasionally get to rough a show and get a payday where I'm like, can it please always be like this? Because this is unbelievable. How much are you paying me? Am I supposed to give you change? I don't understand.
Right.
And then I get a regular payday. I'm like, oh, that's
and that
real.
was the one thing too. Or someone's like, you want to work the show with me? It pays pretty good. And then when you get paid, you go,
this is good.
but it took a while to reprogram this kind of stuff. So I don't have any first match horror stories, man. It was crazy. It was fun.
So when did that classic tag team come into fruition? When did you meet Cody? Where did you guys come up with the idea? What was the motivation behind it? And just tell me a story about TKTT.
So Cody and I were training at the same time. He came in maybe a week after I did. And Cody was already trained. I was new. Cody trained in Alabama with a friend of his, I think, and that's how he got the Castle last name. I can't remember the full story, but he trained in Alabama for a while. His dad actually runs a promotion in Alabama.
Oh, wow.
So he kind of got to experiment there. Then he took off and went to OVW. So he was actually at OVW for maybe a year or two, and he drove from Alabama to Kentucky almost every day. Yeah, so he's
that's dedication right there.
Yeah,
to drive that far.
He's been around for a little bit, but he was up there. He tells me different stories about OVW. Some good, some bad. I mean, obviously that was years ago, but he came back and he wanted to get trained again, and he did it at 3D. So that's where I met him, because it was weird because everybody else was doing a different learning moveset, and they just had Cody in there already doing moves and stuff. I'm like, well, how's this guy so good? Oh, he already knows it. And we just started bonding. Just I think because of our accents, maybe.
Could be.
Because there are so many
they
people.
Are charming accents.
Thank you. There's so many people that, not so many, but one of the kids that we train with, he's like, dude, I thought you were a jerk I thought you were going to be a jerk when I first met you. I'm like, why? Because, I try to be nice and professional to everybody, I'm not overly nice, but I'm professional, and I feel like I'm a pretty good person to most people.
Yeah.
And I didn't say anything rude to that guy either. And he's like, I don't know, man. You just kind of remind me of one of those guys in high school that used to pick on me. I'm like, okay. And then
sure.
Cody butted in. He goes, Kiko, I've always loved him. He's always seemed like a great guy. I'm like, it's probably the accents, right? He's like, yeah. Because he's from Alabama and I'm from Georgia.
Right.
That's kind of how it happened. And then my second match was actually with Cody in Alabama and his dad's promotion. And that one was another one where, it was really
just
good.
went really well.
Yeah, so the first couple were really good, man. We did all kinds of stuff. We were doing, he would flip me over on a hip toss. I'd land on my feet. I'd do the old Shelton Benjamin jump to the top. We did all kind of stuff. So we just had a natural chemistry in the ring. We'd always work with each other to the point where they'd be like, all right, guys, you got to stop. You got to help other people, or you got to work with other people. So, because I always used him because he was good to help me, and I kind of helped him a little bit too. But we just had developed a natural chemistry there, and he mentioned something one time about Colt Cabana's old gimmick, That Klassic. Do you remember
Yes,
this?
That Klassic.
Was that in
yep.
Wrestling Society X? Where was that?
I think so. I think he also might have done it in JCW too.
Okay.
A little bit. I know he also does Officer Colt Cabana in JCW, but
right. So he mentioned That Klassic, and it didn't hit me at first. It really didn't. It didn't. It's a That Klassic. It's a fantastic match.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It didn't click with me. I'm like, bro, you should be Cody Classic. And he's like, what? I'm like, yeah, man, we could do an old school type of gimmick, this kind of stuff. And it was just kind of just talking, just throwing stuff to the wall.
Yeah.
And he really liked, what was it? Larry Sweeney. We both really liked Larry Sweeney.
Larry Sweeney was amazing.
We both really liked him. His his videos on YouTube would just pop us, just the strutting thing, where he pauses one match. It might have been between Colt Cabana and the Booker at Ring of Honor.
Delirious?
Delirious. It might have been him and Delirious. He stops them both and he says, real wrestling's about strutting. And we just always just think that was hilarious. And Larry kind of had a little 70s thing.
Mm-hmm. He did.
Most people, I don't know if too many people realize, but when we first started doing it, it was two 70s guys. We did 70s. I don't know if you noted that.
I didn't even know that.
We did 70s guys.
I could see it as a 70s, 80s hybrid.
It was just straight Bee Gees.
Wow.
Yeah, I had my
Is there video of this somewhere? Because I have to find it, because that sounds amazing.
So we did a promo and all kind of stuff, and it was just really funny. And it's very different from what he was doing, and also very different from what I was doing. And it just kind of it gelled a little bit. Like we started tagging, learning about all this because we go to school and practice all of our moves and stuff like that. And we just both worked well with each other that it worked. So the original idea behind it, That Klassic Tag Team, people think it's a playoff of That 70s Show, which it kind of is. But Devon also said that for something one time, and we just always popped that. He asked somebody if they had something, but he didn't say, "Do you have this?" He goes, "You got that." So we thought that was hilarious. So we put it in there.
Yeah.
I don't even think he realizes that. I still would joke with him every time, say, "You got that," whatever. But anyway, I don't think he realizes that. But that's where that mainly came from. It's a play on That 70s Show, but also what Devon said that popped it. So it was That Klassic Tag Team. Kigo starts with a K, so does Cody. So there was the K for classic.
There you go.
We were doing 70s stuff. The plan was to hit all decades. That was the plan. It was trying to be like a Leva Bates character, but just decades, where you'd be like Bee Gees 70s one day, come out to like hair metal 80s another day, and then maybe do like something different for the 90s, like do hands.
Well, and I think it's cool that you could do that still. You could still transition. I think you guys are hitting gold with like the 80s style stuff, but you could just one day decide, hey, we're going to do the next month or 2 months as 90s guys.
Right.
And
so that was
I
original.
think your crowd would just follow with it.
Yeah.
They would get it.
That was the original plan, and then once we got to the 80s, we did a whole promo video for it. That's when we did the Back to the Future promo.
That was amazing.
Yeah, and my brother, all props to him because he's the one that edited all that. He did the special effects at UCF. He went and got to one of their computer labs and made the Back to the Future, because we drive in Cody's Hyundai, and once it takes off, it does the Back to the Future thing with the tires.
Yeah.
And it looked really good. And that was the whole, we're trying to make like a fake movie trailer. Just tell everybody we're going to the 80s now. And then once we got there, it worked. So I'm like, dude, I don't even know if we should try to transition anymore because this 80s thing's working really, really good.
No, I mean, if you guys do pull a heel turn at some point or something like that, you could be like 90s grunge guys, but there's so many, it's working so much and there's so much material to draw on.
Yeah.
Like your Saved by the Bell promo,
right.
like stuff like that. There's so much good stuff, and nostalgia is so huge right now, and it's so over.
It is.
That it works. So anyway.
Because that's the thing too, I was always I like older music anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big 90s music, 80s music, 70s, 60s. My parents used to listen to nothing but oldies.
Oh yeah.
So I knew more about the 70s and Cody, but once we got to the 80s, it was more clicked in. And then the first song we came out to was Satisfaction by what was it, Human League? Right?
Yes.
And that was good, but we worked more as heels. And then one summer, summer 2016, I heard nothing but Susudio on the radio for some reason, and I had to listen to it 100 times. And I'm like, we should come out to this. I like the way this hits. And ever since then, we've always come out to
Well, and that's the first introduction I've had to you guys, and I was immediate fans. The first show I ever saw you guys on, hadn't heard anything about you before. I was new to the wrestling scene, but as soon as that song hit and you guys came out, I was like,
it's
they're the
a
best.
good song, man.
They're the best.
Good song. And I was looking for maybe
I don't even need to know how good they wrestle.
Yeah,
they're the
you come out
best.
to Phil Collins and Susudio, you're definitely going to be someone that gets cheered. So, yeah, man, it's something that we've stuck with for a while. Getting the jean jackets was fun. We got those, and then we had a guy did the I don't know if you call it spray paint or not, but did the special designs for
the
them.
silk screen type.
Yeah.
I forget what the term is for it.
It really all the neon stuff. It really I think.
When Cody's hat too stands out a lot.
What's crazy about that is sometimes he'll leave it on for the first couple minutes, and that thing stays on.
It does. It doesn't go anywhere. I don't get it.
Because he's doing Hurricane.
Yeah, it doesn't go anywhere.
And it's staying on his head. I'm like, that's pretty cool, man. But that's how that started. It was it was a joke that became more serious. That transitioned to we could make funny promos and entertaining promos, and then just kind of went from there.
Well, and to talk about the effort you put into that promo, the Back to the Future promo, you guys continue to put that level of effort and quality into your promos, and I think that's one of the big selling points about your team recently too, is you guys put together such solid promos, and we were talking earlier about them being kind of meta sometimes, or kind of to pop the boys in the back, but they're really well thought out. They're really well, I want to say scripted, even though you guys may go off script constantly on there. It's just, it tells a story. It's not just, well, I know I have this show coming up, so I have to say something. You suck. I'll see you at XYZ show. You guys actually have your ongoing storyline no matter what shows you're on.
Right. And that's one of the things, because my brother, he made the first few for me, but I felt like I was always bothering him because now he doesn't in college anymore. He works at FedEx in Tennessee, so he's busy doing his thing because he works at FedEx corporate, so he's like super duper busy, and he gave me his computer that he edited on.
Yeah.
And it took a while, but I figured out how to do decent editing. So like we were talking about earlier, if you present yourself and you feel like it's a good quality, if everything looks professional, then people are more likely to take you professional. Now the car promos.
Love the car promos.
Now the car promos it was an idea that came from me because I would always get Facebook Live updates about wrestlers, and it's not just one person, it's a bunch of different people.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, you'd like look at your phone and go, okay, why? And then like you try to scroll away from it, but it puts you onto it anyway. And people are in the car, hey, what's up? We're going to a road trip, this, and that. And I'm like, okay. And then I watch the first couple minutes. I'm like, all right. And then obviously someone in the back's got a Bang energy drink, and everybody started doing it.
Yeah.
And
or they're going live on the way to a show
Yeah.
and not really talking about anything important, but you do see the bangs or whatever the car snack is.
right. So, and like I said, not to knock. That's not like a knock or anything. It's just how people follow trends.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, Cody, why don't we poke fun at this? So I was like, dude, what if we did a wrestling road trip and we had nothing to say? You know, like what if we did something and we had nothing to say? And he's like, all right, I'm following. And I'm like, you know, everybody drinks those Bang energy drinks now. And he's like, okay. And I'm like, what if you get in and you just, you know, you put over that you're drinking a Bang, like you overly, I'm drinking a Bang, like product placement. And you tell me, like, it's delicious. And I laugh. I'm like, no, it's not. You're just trying to fit in. And he's like, yeah, I am.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things that's just, I was expecting it to take off a little bit, but not as much as it did.
So huge. Huge. Because I think so many people, especially those in the industry, knew what you were going for and latched onto it immediately.
Right.
Like they got it immediately.
So a lot of people that I didn't even know, that promoters in like Georgia and like South Carolina stuff, they like they shared it and put it over. And I'm like, okay, that's awesome, but like book us too.
Yeah. How about you also book us?
Yeah. So I didn't expect it to get over like it did because like, and it wasn't just a car promo. We're like, we're in a car. It like I cut like different segments.
Yes. Yep.
So the first part was hey, and it was like overly corny. And I even watched it back, and I'm like, man, that's really corny. And then what's funny is the Metro Brothers were like popping, like they were like, dude,
it's so
when
good.
when Cody sat in, you were like, Cody. He's like, that's hilarious. And like I remember like cringing to that when I watched it back.
Oh, it was
but now
so good.
It's just one of those things. So he gets in the car, all with a stupid grin on his face, and we're talking about how we're going to take a wrestling road trip, and we're super excited. And then we're like, all right, we're just going to start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we start. We just kind of just
the speed limit here.
Yeah, just
I think you
here.
can go about 5 over.
Yeah, we're just sitting here, and then I knew I wanted the Bang energy in there as the last part of the gag.
Well, and then the camera falls. It was so good.
So when
it
he
was
opened
so
it,
well thought.
I was like, I got to look up a gunshot noise or something. So it does. It opens. It's bang.
Yep.
So it makes a gunshot noise, and the camera. I actually hit brakes. And the camera just went on its own.
It did it on its own?
Yeah.
I thought that was staged. I
No,
thought you guys
it
had
did it on
planned
its
that.
own, and it looks so much better than
It was so much better than
so
that.
and that got over, and then we had to cut a promo for another show, and I'm like, dude, why don't we just keep doing?
Well, and I like the different energy drinks with their own different sounds, like the Rain energy drink with the Roman Reigns.
Yeah,
it was so good.
Yeah. So the next one that we did, he started out outside of the car, and he just said something doesn't feel right. And then we got in the car, then we did the promo, and there was he drank the low calorie Bang, and it made the silencer noise from GoldenEye. And then we just kept running with it, and it's funny because I was talking about you this last show. I'm like, dude, it's to the point where people think like I'm actually cutting car promos for real, and you're like, man, it's so meta at this point that you should keep doing. So we did, like you said, we tried to tell a story. We cut a promo for the upcoming show, but it's continuing with the Bang Energy story. It was just to the point where I was like, dude, these are great and hilarious, but I feel like people think that we only cut car promos because that's all we can do, and it's really just us trying to be funny. So that's when we did the whole he was addicted thing, and that was supposed to be the big payoff.
Yeah.
The him addicted thing and the him. And I actually watched it back the first time, and I was like, this might be a little too much. I'm like, this might be a little harsh, but everybody.
I thought it was fantastic.
Everybody thought that was funny
it's
too.
Just, it fits what you guys are doing, you
Yeah.
know. And I think anybody who takes it too seriously is
Yeah.
taking it far too seriously.
They were fun. They were fun to cut, man.
So now I want to give you an opportunity to plug anything you want to plug. TKTT, yourself, companies, schools that you trained at, whatever the case is.
Why don't I plug you first, Kent, because you're an excellent host and this podcast, you're also an excellent referee. Like I was telling some of the fellow referee birds, all these guys are great, and every time they have one of our matches, I am relieved because that's one less thing I got to worry about. So I appreciate you, sir, and also Lee and Tony. They're great. You guys are all great. If you follow us on Facebook, it is That Klassic Tag Team. You can check me out on Instagram, Kiko_Harris, and Twitter is also the same, Kiko_Harris. And you guys out there looking for a school, I would greatly recommend Tim 3D Academy. You're going to get trained by Hall of Famers. Bubba's there. Dino's
Yeah, what more
there,
can you say than that?
and Billy Gunn's there. So that's 3 WWE Hall of Famers that can train you. Hey, guys. I also want to put over Young Professor as he's chanting for me right now. Oh,
You got the fan club.
The car promo, Young Professor was in one
Yes.
of them.
Thanks, Professor.
The cutaway gag with Young Professor, that's the one that really, I laughed so hard when he just sent me the part that told me to use faux pas. I laughed forever.
The word is faux pas.
And my girlfriend
Thanks,
goes,
Professor.
what are you laughing about? And I'm like, this. And she's like, how is that funny? I'm like, just you wait.
Just wait and
It'll
see
be
it.
funny. So props to Young Professor as well. But, yeah, I'm grateful, man. It's been, I'm almost hit 5-year mark. And it's been one hell of a journey.
Well, and I feel like there's so much further to go.
Yeah.
And I definitely want to do an update with you and Cody in
Sure.
the future. There's so much more we could talk about, but they're telling us we got to get out of
Yeah,
here. So,
yeah.
Kiko, thank you so
Yeah,
much for
thank you,
joining
buddy.
me.
I appreciate
And
it.
we will see you guys on the next Interview Wednesday.